Hello and good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the Manaaki podcast. Today we've got, she's a well-known New Zealander, and I think she really sums up what it is, what the word means, Manaaki. She's doing some extraordinary work and supporting a lot really at the coalface of our essential services, as well as some of our people living really on the breadline. Her name, as many of you will be familiar with her, Lisa King. There she is, the CEO of Eat My Lunch. Hello, Lisa. How are you doing?
Hi, Rachel. I'm good, thanks.
Now, I know up until COVID-19, you were feeding around 2,000 children a day across about 77 schools, I think it was, in both Auckland and Wellington. What are you doing now?
Yeah, well, obviously, that changed for us with schools closing. And so now, just in the last week, we've started sending out weekly food parcels directly to the 2,000 children's homes. And so they're receiving a box worth of ingredients enough to make their own lunches for a week at home.
Wow. So what's that, like a loaf of bread and some ham and things?
Yeah, bread, ham, tuna, fresh food like tomatoes, lettuce, cucumber, 5 servings of fruit, and also, some little treats like little bags of chippies and chips as well. And they also get the milk from Fonterra. So we've partnered with them to help deliver the milk they were previously getting through the Milk and Schools program. And every week as well, we've had the amazing Dr. Michelle Dickinson, also known as Nano Girl, design a science experiment around using some of the food or the packaging that's coming in their boxes. So just
That's
a worksheet, with something they can do at home as well.
Have you been also doing some work with emergency services and essential services?
Yeah, so we've been working and delivering lunches to some of the essential service workers, particularly in healthcare. So we've teamed up with an initiative called Feed the Front Lines, and delivering lunches to the nurses and healthcare workers in hospitals around Auckland and Wellington. And that's been really, personally for me, a really satisfying partnership, because my sister's also a doctor. And she's working through all of this at the moment. So we've delivered about 500 meals to them, and, just knowing the shifts that they're working, they don't really have time to stop and eat. So being able to give them like a fresh, prepared, healthy lunch has been really well received.
What about, it's no secret that you work at the coalface at times of social deprivation. You feed children who, for a number of reasons, don't have access to food. And that won't have improved, I imagine, in the midst of a lockdown. What happens to some of those children?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think, we were anticipating there'd be even more need. And now we're getting those requests directly from families. It's really heartbreaking, because, the need is huge, and we're getting probably, 2 or 3 requests a day, just saying, can you please help get food to my family or to my kids? And there are, definitely other charities and other social services working at the moment to try and get food to all of those that need it. But it's really hard when you receive that request directly to not do something about it. And, we're just seeing people struggling with things like not having enough money for petrol to go to the food bank to get food, or single mums, with kids at home and they can't leave their kids to go out. So making, it difficult to get groceries or, go to some of the food banks. So we've been where we can, trying to deliver, just little food parcels. But the need is definitely outgrowing what we can provide.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. There's a lot going on out there in the world, and we're in our own bubbles, literally, and with our own issues. But there is some very real need out there for the services that you're providing, aren't there?
Yeah, and look, the people are just finding it a lot tougher at the moment as well.
Yeah.
And food, and particularly healthy food. We sent a couple of families just some fresh fruit and vegetables, and they were just so thankful, because they're like, we've just been living off, tinned spaghetti for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
and it's those small things that, we often take for granted.
Now, I know Eat My Lunch in the past has relied sort of on that volunteer model. You wrote people in to come and help make your lunches. How has that or hasn't that worked now in the space of a lockdown? What did you have to change?
Yes, obviously with all the health and safety regulations, and the ability to trace and track people, and also to keep our own team safe and knowing who we're coming into contact with, we've had to cut all the volunteers, unfortunately. And that was always one of the most unique and probably my favorite part of Eat My Lunch, was that we would get 35 strangers come every morning to make these lunches for the kids, and so we couldn't have that anymore. And so that, in terms of what we're delivering to the kids and the way that we're doing it, has had to change completely. So, instead of pre-made lunches, we're doing weekly food boxes with ingredients. We've had to get staff in to pack those boxes. We're sending out we've sent already 2,200. So that's around 400 plus a day. And then to deliver them to homes, before we were delivering to 77 schools. And we had a couple of volunteers that also helped us with that. And now delivering to 2,000 individual homes. So the logistics behind that. And again, having paid staff to do that, it's completely changed the cost model of how we can deliver that service.
Yeah, well, I was going to talk to you a little bit about that too, because your model at the moment, and for our audience too, they're really interested in mindsets around, how you strategize when you're in the eye of the storm and you're having to pivot your business. But your model relied on, corporates largely buying one lunch and then you fed a child and you got a free lunch as part of that. Now that's all very well and good when the corporate world is functioning, but it's not. And so your business has actually had to turn on its head. How are you funding what you're doing now?
Yeah, so look, at the moment, being a social enterprise or a socially driven business, I think, the fact that we combine the best of kind of traditional, commercial business plus charity, and doing, the work that a lot of charities do, we have been able to draw on multiple sources of funding. So we've launched a public Give a Little campaign, and I think it's up to 82,000 at the moment.
Wow, that's great.
Which is awesome. We've had amazing partners like Foodstuffs contributed $100,000 for us to kickstart being able to deliver these boxes to the kids. We've had other organisations donate money, and even now I've just had a call from Air New Zealand because their flights aren't going. They've got all these cookie time cookies. They were like, would you like these? Yeah, so we'll put them in for the kids, which is, again, just helps us with that cost structure. But the corporate, lunches that we were selling funded all of the giving. And that pretty much disappeared overnight. We went from making thousands a day to, I think our lowest day we made 20 lunches. So
have you had to go looking for it? Like, that's great. When it's, hello, Air New Zealand, would you like some cookie time cookies? Absolutely. And Foodstuffs with their 100,000 as well. That's fantastic as well. Have you had to do a lot of door knocking, or, just have you used your channels and your networks, or is word getting out? I mean, how are people coming to you, and how are you making these things happen?
Yeah, look, we've I've always had really amazing partnerships and support from the corporate community. And I think, right now there are a lot of businesses that obviously aren't in the same position to help, but wherever they can, they have been able to. And we've been very fortunate in that people have been coming to us. They've heard about what we're doing now, even through lockdown. Being on the news the other night really helped. And it's really surprising. I mean, in some ways it's surprising, in some ways it's not, because we've always experienced the huge generosity of New Zealanders. But, we've had donations from all over the country, and also from overseas. So it's just been incredible, and people have just donated literally what they can. And, we've received donations for $4, and donations for a lot more than that. But I think everyone now also just, they're looking to do their bit and to help out in any possible way that they can.
What's been key, do you think, to pulling this off quickly? And to, I want to take it back a little step to on the day when, the lockdown was announced and your business model was, essentially to a certain degree out the door. Going to school and feeding kids in schools was gone. Tell me a little bit about because you exude this calmness, Lisa, but tell me a little bit about what you've gone through in those first few days to get Eat My Lunch to where it is now.
I think we probably before level 4 came into effect, we were already starting to see the impact with, a lot of corporates working from home. So our sales, literally went kind of down
right.
Overnight. And we also knew that the school closures was inevitable. And I think what's kind of kept us really focused and really calm about as calm as we can be about the whole thing, is just having this real clarity around why the business exists. And, it's always been from the outset about feeding kids. And so it was never a question whether we would continue to do that or not. We just had to find a different way of doing it. And I think being a smaller business, we're nimble enough and we are fast enough to react and change. So, I think that's definitely an advantage in terms of our size. And also the way that we think is very entrepreneurial. It's very, a little bit out of the box. It's like, right, well, if we can't do schools, what can we do? And the process we really went through was, well, what are we really, really good at? And, we have established ourselves as a supply chain and logistics business for the last 4.5 years. So we've, got our own courier fleet, we've got our own drivers, we've invested hugely in infrastructure to deliver to thousands of addresses in a day. And we knew we could do that. So even with the school kids, we were like, well, that's how we're going to actually achieve that. And so just before school closed, we went out to all the schools and asked them to get the parents to register their details if they still wanted our services. And over, in 24 hours, I think we had over 1,000 kids registered already. And right now we're at 2,500, which is more than what we were delivering previously. But again, as people found out about what we're doing, and we're just seeing more and more of that need come through. So I think, really focusing on what we're really good at and knowing our strengths as well as our weaknesses. And then as a business, on the commercial side, to ensure that we kept going and kept the business alive and kept our 42 staff in employment throughout this time.
Wow.
And we went, well, so there's no need for corporate lunches right now. What is it that consumers need? And everyone's at home needing groceries delivered. Again, that's, we're really good at supply chain and logistics. And so we were able to pivot our entire business pretty much within a week to be able to do those two things.
Yeah, and am I right? You're selling like a meat pack, and that helps contribute like a free lunch as well.
Yeah, so we're selling boxes of like fresh essential groceries, so fruit and vegetables, freshly baked bread, meat, dairy, and again, delivering to people's homes. And, we saw definitely that need, particularly when we went into level 3 and there were, a lot of groups that were asked to stay home, like the over 70s. So, we've got an elderly care pack to kind of cater for that group as well. So I think just focusing not necessarily on what are we going to do, but what is the solution that we can provide.
Right, that's really interesting.
Right now.
Because obviously, hospitality, with a number of sectors obviously throughout the country that are really hurt, but hospitality is a massive one, our cafes and our restaurants. What's your advice? We're sort of seeing, that we're flattening the curve, that it looks like we're likely to go into level 3, we think, next week. What would be your advice to some of those small businesses as they're gearing up for that? How do they adapt to some of the measures that are likely to be put in place? And if you're in that sector, how do you get yourself into that right mind? Are you looking for partnerships? What are you looking to survive?
Yeah, so I think partnerships is definitely, key for us. and finding people who can do the things that you can't do. So, for example, we've reached out to other organisations who we knew didn't have a delivery infrastructure and said, well, we're already doing this, so let us know if we can help you deliver things like the milk, to kids, the science experiments from Nano Girl and so forth. So I think, leveraging off everyone else's strengths as well. And then, like I said, we just focused on what we're really good at. And I think I read somewhere recently, right now isn't the time to sell. It's the time for you to actually go and solve someone's problems. And there are, those problems are opportunities for businesses. So, I think focusing it in that light and looking at it through that lens and kind of going, well, what is it that people are going to be needing? Not just right now, but coming out of lockdown. What is it that, what have people got used to in the last couple of months, and how are we going to be living in the next few months?
Yeah.
So things like home delivery, online ordering, you see all the baking that everyone's doing at the moment.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess what you're saying is instead of we can focus on, gosh, all the problems, in front of all of us with our businesses. You're saying, look for the solution that we need, or look for the solution that our own small business might be able to offer in these circumstances, and partner.
Yeah, and partner with people to deliver that. And, we've been talking to a lot of people, particularly in the hospitality industry, around how we can help them transition, from potentially just a traditional restaurant where people come, to actually some of the new ways that they need to be in order to service their customers.
It's been really interesting, actually, looking at some of the restaurants around the country who are trying to think about, whether they could do a takeout model. And I guess that's where someone like Eat My Lunch comes into it, because you guys are, kind of experts in that area of logistics and supply chains and ferreting food around.
Yeah. And, there's definitely lots of other platforms doing that. And, Uber Eats will come back online very soon.
Yeah.
And, there's opportunities there as well, I think. And
yeah.
I also think, people are going to want to, when possible, come out and support small local businesses. And so how do you take advantage of that, being one yourself?
Yeah. When we come out of COVID, in time, whenever that is, it sounds to me that do you think your business will go back to doing not just what it was doing, because it was fulfilling a very important job, but it was quite focused on schools. Do you think your business has changed forever, even once we are out and sort of back in perhaps level one?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we'll, go back to just doing corporate lunches or just school lunches. And if anything, it's been really hard to execute the delivery of these food packs to kids at home. You imagine the logistical element of that and the cost. But what we're seeing is that it potentially is a better way of doing, there's providing food to kids, because they're actually learning how to make their own food at home. And
it's a really important point. Yeah.
Educational piece, which we've struggled to provide previously, we've actually found a way of doing that. And we've been receiving feedback from families going, my kids just love making their own sandwiches.
As opposed to my son, who would say, stink, I've got to make my own lunch. It's a great idea.
Never had the opportunity previously, or they haven't seen whole ingredients come to them, that they need to actually cut and mix flavors, or figure out that actually eating healthy is tasty and it's easy. So I think it's starting to make us think about, well, this might be harder, but actually, is it a better way for us to ultimately achieve what we want to?
Yeah, there's an educational element. So I guess you've had some really like some fundamentally quite major learnings yourself from this whole process. What's I mean, I can't begin to imagine where your energy is coming from, and I imagine you're probably pretty exhausted through all of this. I mean, most people are sitting at home, exhausting their Netflix, and you guys are out there at the coalface doing some remarkable stuff. Where do you, or have you got into the space of already strategizing and thinking beyond level 3 into level 2 into level 1? Have you had the mental space to do that? And who or what are you drawing on for your inspiration to help you with that?
Yeah, look, I think the first couple of weeks it was just all go. And I just coming out of the first 2 weeks, I thought, I don't think I've worked that hard, probably since we first launched the business, 4.5 years ago. Because again, it was almost like starting the business again, getting the operations going, and we didn't know exactly what we were doing, and there was a lot of figuring things out, and with the health and safety regulations that we had to implement, so that was all quite new for the team. We moved from not just a morning shift, so we used to do 5 to 1. We're now pretty much 5 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, staggering our shifts. And so there was a lot to kind of manage and get our heads around, and it was pretty much all hands on deck. And we had a couple of days where we experienced growth similar to what we did in the first few weeks of Eat My Lunch at my house, where our website crashed because there was just too many people on it. We were delivering until 7 o'clock at night, so it was everyone in their cars off doing that.
Wow.
So it was quite stressful, but also quite fun, because it kind of was rebuilding a business again. And so after that, I was pretty exhausted, and we've had a couple of days off over Easter, and I think that's given us the mental space, and we've already started talking as a board and as a management team around right now beyond level 3, 2 and 1. What does that look like? And just drawing kind of just talking to lots of different people around what they're seeing, and also looking at overseas at some of the countries that are a little bit ahead of us, and kind of going, well, what potentially could that world look like, and what are people doing now as they're coming out of lockdown. So we're definitely, that's our next priority for next week.
So you've got a lot of staff still, which is great. As the business owner, Lisa, how are you looking after yourself? How are you looking after your bubble while you're doing all of this? And how are you looking after the team? Because I guess you're not going sort of person to school, you're going home to home. And obviously you've got measures in place, but how are you ensuring that everybody's as safe as they can be in this environment?
Yeah, so we've, that was our number one priority, was the safety of our team. And so we've had to ensure that everybody that was coming to work were able to keep to their own bubble when they were at home. And, just any sign of sickness or anything that, they just didn't come to work, because we just couldn't put the rest of the team at risk. And so we've got an amazing team who understand all of that, and just keeping control of who can come out of our work environment. So the team are really comfortable with the safety measures that we've put in place for them. It is hard, because we are asking them, to do hours and to do time and do things that they've never done before. And I think it helps that, when the general manager or myself or, some of the management team are there with them doing it. They, we're all in it. And again, it just always goes back for me to our purpose. When they start seeing those boxes going out to the kids and seeing the letters from them and their photos, for the team, that's why we get up every day. And it's that constant reminder of, this is why we exist. And I think for me personally, that's the motivation that always, no matter how tired I am or how chaotic or stressful or frantic things get, you see these photos and you get these emails just from families and how grateful they are. And you're like, okay, that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. you know you're making a difference. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, great advice, and thank you for talking to us this Friday afternoon and doing the hours that you do. I think you know, more and more as we move through COVID-19 and the impact of it, we're going to hear more and more stories like this. You know, like your staff just getting a call, you know, on a Friday if no one's got food and driving to that place to drop off some food. It's pretty remarkable what you guys are doing. That's true Manaaki, I have to say. Thank you for your inspiration. I hope that we had a lot of people from hospitality watching and thinking about how they might be able to pivot and find partnerships. That seems to be the key for you, and hopefully for them as well. So thank you for your insight. I hope you get some rest over the weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much. I'm Lisa King, the CEO of Eat My Lunch, which is, gosh, a business that's morphing and changing. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Everybody will be back on Monday, but you can questions all through the weekend as well on Manaaki.io, that forum. There are lots of questions and answers there for you. Thanks so much, people. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend.